Our big focus on the 10 o'clock news this evening. Shares of the Adani Group companies continue to remain in the limelight today, with the flagship Adani Enterprises rallying an 8% amid reports of likely inclusion in the 30-share BSE Sensex. The stock of Adani Enterprises jumped 8.01%, and this also amid a particular report by a foreign publication targeting the Adani Group. Buying was also seen in other group stocks. Shares of the Adani Ports climbed 4.72%. The ACC, meanwhile, shot up by 2.86%, and Adani Power went up by 2.79%. Also, Adani Total Gas advanced 2.3%, and Ambuja Cements 2.09%. The combined market valuation of all the 10 listed group items stood at 17.23 lakh crore rupees. Adani Group's market capitalization has regained the $200 billion mark after its listed firms gained over 11,000 crore rupees as investors reposed their faith in the Adani Group amid allegations of any wrongdoing rubbished by long-term market observers. What does it really mean? The way the market has responded to this particular report by a foreign publication. Joining me for that, J.N. Gupta, former executive director of SEBI. Also with us, Sanjay Asher, senior partner at the Crawford Bailey and Company. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for joining us on the 10 o'clock news. Going across to you first, Mr. Gupta. How do you look at how the markets have responded to this particular report targeting the Adani Group?
So first of all, I would make it clear that when a share price rises, one cannot attribute any single reason for the rise. So today, market has risen, Sensex has risen, so Adani has also risen along with that. So one point is this, that markets are rising, so Adani stocks are rising because they are part of the same ecosystem as others are there. That is one thing. The second thing is this, market and market players have realized that somehow or other Adani Group is being targeted, and market has learned to ignore such targeted news. The reason is very simple, that last year all ho-halla was done and Adani Group stock suffered, the market kept suffered. But if you look in retrospect, the only people who suffered were not Adani. Adani did not suffer because their market cap has come almost to the same level. Who suffered? The retail investors, because those who did not have the holding power. Okay. Now the recent report that has come in the Financial Times on the coal scam, all that, it makes me laugh for the simple reason, in an international trade, when the coal is loaded from the port, there is the inspection, and inspection is not done by Tom, Dick and Harry. They are done by internationally renowned agencies. And when the coal is uploaded, the buyer also does the testing.
Okay.
And it is not that whatever I give to buyer will accept it. Third is this, most important is that when the coal is used, the technicians will find out whether the coal quality was good or not, because if the coal had high sulfur or high moisture, it will not perform.
That's a significant point you made, but looking at the larger point that you are making, Mr. Gupta, that the markets in a sense have ignored the report. And Mr. Asher, would you agree with that argument, that the markets have become immune to these kind of targeted reports?
I would completely agree with that particular view. And market investors are both intelligent and clever. They do their own homework, they do their own diligence, and thereafter they invest or they divest. Now, having said that, the fact that the prices of Adani Group shares have gone up would surely suggest that, look, there is no teeth, there is nothing in the report, in the news item which has come in FT. And there is no absolutely, it doesn't make sense to have those allegations put in an international newspaper. So to my mind, investors have certainly a lot of faith, lot of trust in Adani Group entities, and therefore there is constant investment and there is constant demand for the Adani stock. So to my mind, it's absolutely clear, and market is a barometer of what the group is doing. And after having invested in such large infrastructure projects such as ports, airports, power sector, cement sector, I'm sure whatever this particular report is doesn't mean anything to the investors or to the people who make sense in the economy.
Mr. Gupta, would you agree with that? And also, do you sense a larger pattern here, perhaps? Because there have been multiple such reports. In fact, this is the third consecutive report targeting the Adani Group. Do you see a larger pattern here as well, as many would call it some sort of a conspiracy?
See, one really doesn't know what is the objective, but I can always surmise from something. One is that hatred and jealousy are two very, very strong factors for people to keep on making noise. That is one. The second thing is this, that probably it is a fact that India is rising, India is doing economically well. It is not being digested well by people who are not wanting India to grow. So they will keep on making noise and want to do anything which will discomfort the government. So This is one of the target, because if you look at the pattern, first pattern starts that government is in pocket of person A and person B. Then you target person A and person B for doing wrongdoing. So in fact, you are targeting the government. But I do not want to get into what is the political something, but I can always say that if papers like Financial Times are publishing such news item, they should have done their homework very well and understood how the international trade functions. And then most important thing is that I and you may accept bad quality coal, but when my technician, when my boiler, when everything accept that coal, the performance itself will be reflected and there will be hue and cry. So I don't know how somebody will say that a bad quality coal, which is 1/10 or 1/5 of the quality, was accepted. It's impossible. The second aspect is very important. One has to look into that. If when this report had come earlier last year, everybody was saying that Adani bhag jayega, sab bhag jayega. Now nobody understands how can Adani or anybody run away with infrastructure. It is grounded into the Indian condition. And lastly, I would say that, as Sanjay has said, the market is much more intelligent than me, Sanjay, you and every 100 people combined put together, because market knows what is going to happen.
Right. And the market's decision also perhaps, is the ultimate one in this. But the larger point you made, Mr. Gupta, on how these kind of reports somehow also are a bit to tarnish India's growth story. Mr. Asher, would you agree with that?
Completely. Because India is now absolutely on the top of the international map and competing with the international companies on infrastructure, power sector and other sectors. And obviously, an entity like India is dominating in international market on infrastructure and power sector projects. Obviously, there are vested interest people who may not like it. And therefore, if there are any stories which do not make any sense are published in the international newspapers, I mean, it's just to tarnish somebody's image, and especially the country's image.
So that's a significant point made there by Mr. Asher, that it is perhaps a bit to tarnish India's growth story as well. And my last question to you, Mr. Gupta, would you also say that the timing of these reports are also perhaps suspicious? The question of timing was also raised when the Hindenburg report had come out, and even now a lot of people have said that the timing is something that needs to be looked at as well.
I tell you, the timing has been suspect since last year. Last year, the timing was for one, Adani IPO was there. Second, budget was round the corner. Third, G20 meetings were being held. So it was aimed to cause the maximum damage for the financially as well as for reputation wise. This time also, the timing is during the election, where it could be a target that negative news about Adani may impact the government. That is the intention. What is the impact, or somebody is going to make a fool out of us, or somebody is going to ignore, I don't know.
Okay. Mr. Asher, your last comments on this, also looking at the aspect of timing.
I agree with Mr. Gupta completely that the timing coincides with several things, including the election, including the budget which would be there in the month of July. So there are a host of factors as far as the timing is concerned. And I completely 100% agree with the views expressed by Mr. Gupta on the timing front as well.
All right. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for joining us with your perspective there on this important story. Thanks, Mr. Gupta and Mr. Asher. And as I said earlier as well, the shares of the group continue to remain in the limelight. Of course, the focus was Adani Enterprises, which rallied over 8% on Thursday. My colleague Kitty Behel, in fact, spoke to Mr. Jethmalani, a renowned lawyer and also Rajya Sabha member. Listen to what he had to say.
We are being joined by Senior Advocate of Rajya Sabha MP, Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani here. So thank you so much for speaking to NDTV. So my first question here is, London-based Financial Times, citing documents from George Soros-backed organized crime and corruption reporting project, has repeatedly targeted Indian interest under Prime Minister Modi's government, and they've mostly been exposed. Do you think this is agenda-driven?
No, it is purely agenda-driven. I mean, you saw what the Supreme Court did the last time with the Hindenburg report, backed by George Soros, again, OCCRP, Organization for Uncovering Organized Crime. I mean, they themselves will be investigated. According to me, it's one of the biggest organized racket, this OORCP. So, and you know what happened to the Supreme Court last time? The Supreme Court last time actually said that the whole report was based, there was a Supreme Court committee which went into the whole issue, and the Supreme Court, after examining the committee's report, said that the entire issue was based on selective information and completely false, and there was no need for any further investigation into the Adani issue. And they said that they gave him a complete clean sheet. And, in fact, as you know, $150 billion of market cap was lost as a result of that obvious bear. It was a bear hammering operation, right? And it was people acting in concert, overseas people hostile to the Adani Group, and they thought impliedly to the Prime Minister, right, and to India's growing economy. Right. And they were with their local allies, who they were, people who've been expelled from Parliament, right, and who got no relief from the Supreme Court against that expulsion. The Hindenburg report and a business rival, Mr. Darshan Hirandandani. Most of their information and questions became the foundation of that hit job. Now, I suppose the present one you are talking about is that poor quality coal, right, which was imported for Indonesia. First of all, the much speaking but ill-informed Mr. Rahul Gandhi should realize that this transaction of import from Indonesia took place in January 2014. What this country should do, right, is arrest the Minister for Coal at that time under Dr. Manmohan Singh's government and find out how this happened. By the way, it happened in January 2014. Throughout the period, UPA was in power, and it happened to an export to a port in Tamil Nadu. So the coal, the so-called low-quality coal was sold as high-quality fuel to the State Coal Corporation in Tamil Nadu, right? All right, so who was in power in Tamil Nadu was probably the DMK or the AIDMK. I don't remember at that time.
Right, sir. All right, sir. But when markets continue to repose faith in Adani stocks and at a time when there is talk of its inclusion in the Sensex on Friday, what do you think is the reason behind such reports?
Yeah, it is suspect for two reasons. It is to hammer again the stock market, right? And Adani stocks in particular. And it is also time for the elections. I mean, it's obvious, right? It's a very pathetic attempt to bring out a 2014 transaction. What were you doing? What was ORCP and all these organizations doing for such a long time? I mean, this is stale as anything. It's just a completely motivated attempt to try and bear hammer and try and make some quick money and to try and get some electoral gain for their Indian allies like the Congress. And it's misconceived. As I said, there's a 2014 transaction when Prime Minister Modi was not in power. If there's any wrongdoing, get the Minister for Coal and arrest him.
Okay. All right, sir. Sir, my final question here to you. In the last few years, we have seen the Adani Group getting respite from courts despite such reports coming out which are believed to be agenda-driven. Now, opposition too picks on it. Is there a sense of undermining the judiciary here, and what are the legal safeguards?
Well, this particular instance, no. I mean, look, this is a completely absurd case. The undermining of the wasting of judicial time with that entire hit job by Hindenburg. of course it's to be condemned. It is a waste of judicial time. It's undermining judiciary in the sense that it's wasting valuable, precious time. I mean, there are much more important issues. But because they brought it by way of a public interest from the usual public interest litigation peddlers who really do it only for motivated interest. There's no public interest. Somebody made a lot of money in that hit job, in that bear hammering job of Adani stocks. Somebody made a lot of money, right? One day he will pay. After the elections, he will pay. Rahul Gandhi will not come into power in 4th June as he very, very hopefully believes. He will probably be at the receiving end of all these false allegations.
Okay. All right, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to us. Thank you so much for taking up the time and speaking to NDTV.